I'm 27 years old, and I got married 2 weeks ago. I planned and organized my wedding entirely by myself, and the guests kept praising how beautiful and perfect everything was. It was very nice to hear. My stepsister, 26 years old, couldn't stand it and kept telling everyone that I stole her wedding ideas. She's always been jealous of me, so I wasn't surprised, but I was very upset. Some relatives started asking me if it was true that I stole my stepsister's wedding ideas, which was absolutely unfair because I didn't. My stepsister has been making up lies about me for years to make herself look better in comparison, and I'd had enough. When I was 16, my mom remarried, and since then, my stepsister and I have hated each other. At first, I tried to befriend her, but she never wanted that and always turned everything into a competition, which infuriated me. One time, she spread a rumor at school that I had hit on her boyfriend after I made the cheerleading squad. Because of that, almost every girl at school hated and mocked me for a month, except for a few. That's the kind of person my stepsister is. I put up with her antics for a long time, knowing that she did it just to annoy me. And if I reacted? But when it came to my wedding, I couldn't just let it go. I had spent weeks planning everything. She couldn't just show up and slander me after everything I did to make my wedding perfect. I know it was petty, but as soon as I found out she was telling everyone I stole her ideas, I decided to call her. I told her she needed to stop lying, but she laughed in my face, called me an oversensitive loser, and hung up. So, I decided to expose her and her husband in front of the whole family. For context, her current husband, 30 years old, used to be my boyfriend. When I was 23, I lived with my parents and stepsister because I was saving money to move out. I met my ex at work and fell in love almost immediately. However, he wanted to keep our relationship strictly secret and wouldn't let me tell my friends outside of work about him, which, in hindsight, should have been a red flag. Just 2 months after we met, I brought him home to meet my parents and, naturally, my stepsister. At the time, I didn't notice, but she was overly flirty and sweet to him. And I never imagined my ex would cheat on me with her. They must have started texting behind my back then, while I, unaware of their affair, continued dating him and falling deeper in love. After almost a year of dating, I decided I wanted to marry him, so I proposed. It was unconventional, but I loved him so much that I couldn't wait for him to propose to me. So I took the initiative. I took him to a fancy restaurant, and at the end of the evening, when I finally proposed, he said he needed time to think about it. I wish he had just broken up with me then, but instead he had the audacity to drag our relationship out for another 3 months, cheating on me with my stepsister the entire time. I was heartbroken that he rejected my proposal, but I stayed with him, hoping I could change his mind. We finally broke up when, 3 months after my proposal, he admitted that he was in love with my stepsister and wanted to be with her. As if that wasn't enough, he told me she was 3 months pregnant, so in a couple of weeks, her belly would start showing, and they decided to get married as soon as possible. I had a massive breakdown and got into a huge fight with my stepsister, but my parents intervened and forbade me from even talking about it, fearing that the scandal would damage the family's reputation. My stepfather was quite popular, and I had no choice but to comply since I was still living with them. My ex and stepsister had a small, simple wedding ceremony in my parents' backyard with a few close friends and family, and then she moved in with my ex. Of course, I didn't attend the wedding and spent the entire week leading up to it in a cheap motel. The whole time, I drank and ate my feelings. A few weeks after their wedding, I decided I had saved enough money to rent my own place and moved out of my parents' house. But it didn't help my mental state at all. I fell into a deep depression. I spent my days just eating, drinking, and sleeping. I even quit my job because I couldn't force myself to get out of bed. However, I still had one friend who cared about me, my now husband. We had been close friends since high school, but I never considered him a romantic partner, because he had a reputation as the class clown. For weeks after my stepsister's wedding, I skipped all my friends' parties and ignored calls and messages. I thought they would forget about me since everyone was busy with their own lives. But he didn't forget. He was the only one who found out where I lived through my parents and came to my home. He took care of me for weeks, even though I was rude and distant. He never left my side and helped me get back to a normal life. Hell, he even paid my bills since I had no money after quitting my job. I literally owe him my life and will be forever grateful for everything he did for me. A few weeks later, I finally told him everything that happened with my ex and stepsister, and he comforted me. We never officially became a couple. He just moved in with me after a while, and that was it. We never needed to talk about it, and even today, we joke that he never actually asked me out. And I figured it was time for the rest of the family to know what really happened. I first discussed my plan to expose my stepsister with my husband, and he fully supported me. He said that after everything I had been through, it was only fair that I tell everyone the truth. So, a few days ago, I invited the whole family to my home. I called my stepsister and spoke to her in the sweetest tone so she wouldn't suspect anything. And she showed up. When everyone gathered, I started by bringing up her claim that I stole her wedding ideas. I reminded her that she didn't even have a proper wedding, given the circumstances under which she got married. Some guests chuckled awkwardly. Some looked embarrassed, and some were just confused. But I continued. I said that since she was accusing me of stealing her wedding ideas, maybe I should talk about how she stole my husband. This got some gasps and shocked expressions from the guests, especially from my parents and my ex, who turned red. I told the whole story, and the guests looked like they had just been served a juicy gossip feast. When I finished, there was a full minute of silence. Then my stepsister stood up and ran out of the house. Her husband ran after her. Gradually, all the guests left in silence. The last to leave were my parents, who were furious and even had the audacity to demand that I apologize to my stepsister for humiliating her in front of so many people. Well, that's where the story ends. Be sure to leave a comment on what you think about it. Personally, I'm very happy that the story ended with a happy ending, just as it should, because, as you know, not all stories we tell end happily. I was particularly surprised that my stepsister's colleagues cut her off after finding out the truth. But at the same time, those very colleagues were the ones who sent me additional proof. On the other hand, I understand how one single action could trigger a chain reaction, causing everything to spiral out of control. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Check out our previous video here, and good luck.